Hello and welcome to ITV Nighttime, surfing the web.
On the web review this week, I'll be checking out some steamy sacks and finding out where you can bid for a celebrity autograph.
And I'll be going on the piste, wahey! Plus I'll be staying sober long enough to look at some top films that are unlikely to become blockbusters.
Hello and welcome to the web review. Each week we look at a selection of what we hope will be some of the most useful, fun and interesting sites on the internet.
Now, first up on the web review tonight is the kind of site that is a prime example of something that defies all forms of logical explanation. What does it do? Why is it there? Why is it being built? MadScienceLaboratories.com is run by two bona fide scientists, Professor Howard Bowers and Dr. Matthew Halpin. And that's about as far as the scientist theme goes. From what I can make out, this is the sort of weird stuff that scientists seem to enjoy filling their homepages with. The news section is a bit of a control group placebo, because all it does is tell you what's new on the website. Anyway, moving on, we then get a section full of wacky new icons to download on your PC, including a cheery set of Hong Kong Phooey characters. Next up is a games section, with the highlight being a game of noughts and crosses you can play with an educated and presumably genetically modified chicken. Then we wander into the Hall of Fame, where, maintaining the theme of website non-sequiturs, we get a profile of the inventor of alternating current. And then, well, then I gave up, to be honest. If this site's indicative of the level of focus demonstrated by today's eggheads, I think I'll take my chances in the Middle Ages. Mad Science Laboratories, eh? Not really mad, not really science, and not really a laboratory. Well, let's bear in mind this is a homepage and it is unbearably chirpy in places, but did you have any idea what it was all about?
Well, as long as you understand that there's nothing to do with science in any of this, apart from the fact it's two scientists who've got a bit too much time on their hands, it's a really good fun site, and I think it's really nice that there's still place for homepages like this on the net, because it's all corporate stuff and, you know, people can still put their own stuff up. You know, it shows that the net is really accessible to everyone, and I found some really good fun things on there. I like the virtual,
you liked the 8-ball, didn't you?
The virtual 8-ball. I asked it a question and it said, as long as you eat all your vegetables, and I'm vegetarian, so hey, I'm going to get it.
And the chicken beat me at noughts and crosses. I'm going to claim I was momentarily distracted by something, but I was playing away and the chicken won. It's like, no, I can't possibly allow this to happen. Those are quite fun. I do think it's a little bit wayward in its themed approach. But what the hell, it's a homepage, it's good fun.
It's just a mishmash of stuff, so what are we going to give it?
Well, I'm going to give it a very frizzy-haired and wild-eyed 3 out of 5.
Well, they say that playing Mozart to babies increases their intelligence, and I don't think it's too bad for adults either. But if you want to test out the theory, you should be able to find some at the Global Music Network. GMN.com covers the worlds of jazz and classical music with the emphasis on live music and concert broadcasts. You have to register first, and then you can listen to live webcasts of your favourite composers or jazz musicians, or download a selection of free music. The webcasts are concerts that have been previously recorded and are then streamed live from the site for a certain period only. You can choose the software you listen to it with, so the quality is excellent. And while you're listening, you can read up on the concert itself, the composer and the musicians involved. Then, if you like it, there are subtle links to a shopping page with suggested CDs. You can also download music, and the site has the best instructions on how to download that I've come across so far. This site makes this sort of music accessible and actually made me contemplate going to a classical concert. So do you like classical music, or are you more of a jazz man?
Neither, actually, if the truth be told. I find jazz a bit too sort of self-indulgent, a lot of contemporary jazz. And I just don't know enough about classical stuff to get into it, although this site did have a few easy entries into finding some nice bits.
It was very accessible, and I don't really know much about either, but I'm quite keen. And I went to the jazz section. I found some a piano version of Bjork's Venus as a Boy, which was brilliant. and that's contemporary. And on the classical side, I immediately found stuff that I really liked. So I really, really like this site.
I think if they're trying to pull people into classical music, what might be a good idea for this site would be to take excerpts that we've all heard from adverts and films and things, and then say, well, if you like this, you might like this as well. I know it's terribly lowbrow.
That's a really big argument, though, in the sort of classical community, that you shouldn't be picking out the best of, that you should be giving people the whole picture.
This is where you can do what we've seen on a couple of contemporary music sites, where you can say, well, if you like this bit of music, why don't you listen to this as well? It extends people's knowledge.
It does have that. It does link on to different things, and the emphasis is really on the music samples on this site, which I thought was really refreshing, actually.
Okay, so did you like this site?
I thought this was very unstuffy and nice. 4 out of 5.
Now, moving on to something even cooler. It's time for those sporty types to zip themselves up in one-piece suits. Ah, the whoosh of wax on powder, the rattle and hum of chairlift over chasm, and the unspeakable joy of strapping yourself to a pair of pointy planks and chucking yourself down a mountain. Yes, skiing time is upon us, and if you hanker for the adrenaline rush of near death, then our next site, complete-skier.com, could give you an early rush. This is a great site for all things snowy. There's a holiday finder, snow reports, resort reviews, instructions on skiing, and an equipment finder. Although the site's got a .com address, the focus is clearly on the European resorts, which is great if you're tired of checking the weather conditions on other skiing websites and getting nothing but info on snowfall in Oregon. The information on resorts is practical and detailed, although to be honest you do have to know a bit to make sense of all the numbers and stats. And although there's plenty here to keep the snowboarder happy, this is definitely a skier's site. Advice on how to ski better comes not from the publishers, but other skiers in the forums. However, as someone who started skiing relatively late in life, I really can't see how this advice helps you much when you're not actually standing in a pair of skis. But overall, the site is thoughtfully laid out with plenty of information. Ski-tastic. Okay, we're at the end of the summer bit. It is time now to start thinking about skiing. Did you find it useful for your next holiday?
Well, I'm planning my next trip already, and I thought this site was really useful, actually, because I didn't go that long ago. It was only in January, and I was looking through the technique on here, and a lot of it really made sense, actually. And I was imagining what it was like back on the boots, and I thought it was very thorough, very good step-by-step guides on how to improve your technique. And also the design of this site. I was halfway through the site before I actually noticed the design, which I actually really like. It's very unobtrusive. Yeah,
no, I thought the site as a whole was great. One word of caution though about the equipment section. As someone who's just bought a pair of their own skiing boots as opposed to using the rental ones, no way should you buy a pair of boots without putting them on and wearing them for at least a couple of hours and making sure they fit. Because if you get it wrong, you're just going to have a miserable week's holiday.
Absolutely. So taking that into consideration, what do we say then?
Oh, I'm going to give it a very firm parallel skiing 4 out of 5.
Now, if you find it hard to get excited about shopping, let alone cyber shopping, then you might just get fired up about the auction site who want to sell you a dream. Firedup.com sells all of the usual clobber you'd expect from an auction site. But not content to flog you computer games and lawnmowers, they say they can offer you an amazing range of once-in-a-lifetime opportunities that mean you could live like a star. But what are they actually offering? Well, I can tell you now that it's not a string of divorces and a celebrity drug habit. What you can bid for are signed copies of celebrity biographies, rare promotion CDs by stars like Madonna, and VIP tickets to concerts in venues like the Jazz Cafe. Not exactly Tinseltown, but this is Britain after all. And if you're happy not to live like a star, then you could still get a bargain on an MP3 player or a bike. Some products are just for sale, some are open to auction, and you can even haggle down the price on some items with the friendly but feisty Pam. And even if you don't want to buy anything, you can put your bargaining skills to the test in the haggling demo. It's good fun and certainly tests your patience too, especially if you're a bit tight-fisted like me. So you can haggle on this site. Have you actually done that in real life?
I haven't. I'm used to saying it. I went to Turkey last year and I bought a carpet and the bloke said 40 million lira and I went 20 million and he went 40 and I went, oh, all right, then 40 it is.
It's quite hard actually, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to stick to it. On the site, I like the idea of haggling on the site, but it is a little bit contrived, I think.
I know I kept going for sort of 1% of the total, and she was like, "You being serious?"
Yeah, no, it's a bit of a game. I mean, the content on here is quite good. There seems to be an awful lot of stuff, and it is very easy to access. The menu on the left lets you get to it quite simply.
But a bit of an identity crisis for me, because on one side you've got your really bog standard stuff like, you know, lawnmowers, CDs and all that sort of stuff. On the other side you've got the selling you a dream stuff, which is, you know, VIP tickets and, you know, exotic holidays and autographs and, you know, autograph biographies. And I just thought the two didn't really settle well together. It was like they were trying to do two different things.
So did you get fired up about the site?
I thought it was okay, quite interesting, and we give it a 3 out of 5.
If you hated Mission Impossible 2 but loved East is East, then you're probably a fan of art house and independent cinema. If so, then the next site, camera.co.uk, has probably got all the information you need about the films that you like. This site provides intelligent and well-written features and reviews that are easily accessed and updated regularly. Focusing on the kind of films we usually only notice after they've become surprise hits, it's a tightly maintained, intelligent site that puts enormous effort into the content without taking itself so seriously it becomes inaccessible. The site's got 3 main areas: features, reviews and interviews. All seem to be penned by people who know what they're talking about, a rare treat in a web of information overload, and the reviews all seem fair and well balanced. There's a nod in the direction of the big Hollywood blockbusters, but most of Camera's creative energy is focused on providing news about films that generally get passed over in newspaper and magazine listings. The links to other sites are thoughtfully selected, and there's a real emphasis on keeping the site unmuddled. Intelligent, perceptive and well made. A bit like your favourite movies then. So do you like your Hollywood blockbusters, or are you more sort of an arty-farty film sort of person?
Well, I think there is a place for both of those, actually. I do like my, you know, James Bond films and stuff like that, but I suppose I am more into independent films. And this site was excellent. I mean, there wasn't anything I didn't want to read about on this site. My only criticism really was that some of the reviews seemed slightly out of date, and they did sort of tend to go into that sort of pseudo-intelligent thesis speak a little bit, which is like, you know, made it a little bit less accessible. But on the whole, you know, the whole concept of this site was really interesting. I
thought it was quite a nice, clean design as well. It's quite easy to find the information that you were after.
Absolutely. And, you know, no one else is doing it. You've got loads of stuff about Hollywood and all the reviews of those new films, but this is a really good place for independent cinema.
Yeah, and it also did look at some of the big Hollywood names, but in a more, it took a step back from the films themselves and looked at people's canon of work and how the stuff, like the John Woo stuff, for instance.
Yeah.
That was quite good.
So what are we going to give it then?
Well, I quite liked it. I thought it was very intelligently well put together, so I'm going to give it a well shot 4 out of 5.
Well, that's it for part 1. After the break, I'll be chucking another shrimp on the barbie while Richard tries to find out the meaning of life. Join us then. Welcome back to the web review. Now, if your idea of cooking is chugging down a beer while you throw a couple of steaks on a barbecue, then you're going to love the brilliantly titled OutOfTheFryingPan.com. So, out of the frying pan and into the fire, or in this case, onto the barbie. This site's got recipes and ideas aimed specifically at cooking in the great outdoors. To get you started, there's a backyard barbecue checklist. And I'd love to be at a party where they actually served wieners. They're so perfectly American. And once your charcoal started smoking, you should have a look at their ideas for barbecue food. It's not just your usual chicken wings and ribs. They've got recipes for barbecue tofu and roasted sweet corn, which should even keep whinging veggies like me happy. And I love the section on best wines, because most foodie sites ignore the fact that food and drink should come as a package. The site's also got handy gadgets a go-go, delicious sounding just desserts, and you can even cook with rock stars. So Richard, are you a bit of a caveman when it comes to barbecues?
I actually quite enjoy cooking. I do a lot of it at home. But the only problem I have with barbecues is I'm too impatient and I put the food on before the coals have cooled down a bit.
Oh dear, you don't cook your chicken properly.
I know, cardinal sin. My mum always makes me cook the chicken first before I put it on the barbie. She won't eat it.
Oh, good call.
So did you find any good recipes on there?
I thought there's some nice recipes for, for big things. If you're catering for sort of 20 people coming round for an afternoon and you want to sit out and have a barbecue and you've got to cook a lot of food, then there were quite good recipes on there, but it was quite limited to that sort of party food, which in a way, a lot of the problem with cookery sites is that they're so broad, you can't really find what you're looking for. This site, it's just for parties, just for eating outdoors, and quite concentrated like that.
I quite like the little section as well where they had celebrities give their favourite sort of barbecue recipes. There was a nice roast vegetable and sausage recipe that I thought
They always
was
see
nice.
me, the vegetarian, going, ooh.
Yeah, picking all the sausages out.
Yeah, I suppose not really the best site for me, barbecues, really.
Yeah, but it was nicely designed as well, I thought. It had nice sort of lively design.
It did look great, actually, and it's good fun. I thought it had a good sense of humour about itself, really.
So, what are you going to give it?
Well, I'm going to give it a almost well done, but slightly pink in the middle, 3 out of 5.
Now, you might consider the next bit of information utterly superfluous since it's biographical, but I'm going to tell you anyway. When I was 9 years old, I completely dismantled my dad's cine camera because I wanted to find out how the shutter mechanism worked. And I did find out how it worked, but in doing so, I managed to lose so many springs and snaggy bits in the carpet that it didn't go back together again. Well, needless to say, my dad wasn't that chuffed, and so it's to him that I dedicate this next review. Got to tell you folks, if HowStuffWorks.com was a girl, I'd grab it firmly by the waist and start snogging. It's fantastic. The site doesn't just answer all the obvious questions you might have, like how does the internal combustion engine work, or what makes pendulums tick. The constant quest for answers stretches to such esoteric explanations as how does Christmas work? The answers are written in the clear, concise prose of popular science, and are supported when necessary by diagrams, illustrations and animations. And if you download a small add-in to your browser, you can occasionally get a fully interactive 3D illustration, such as this one here for the piston engine. Each question is filed under themes from engines and electronics to sports and weather, with a question of the day and a huge archive of past responses. And if you can't find the information you want, you can even send in your own question. This is now rated as one of the top 1,000 sites on the web. No mean feat really when you consider there's over 800 million of them, and it's easy to see why it's so popular. I have this vague notion that this site only appealed to my particular tastes. Did it work for you?
Well, I'm definitely not as in love with this site as you are. If this site was a boy, I'd probably let him take me to the cinema, but definitely no snogging. But having said that, there were some bits that I really, really liked, and I thought it explained science in a very, very accessible way. And even things I had a look at how golf clubs work, because I've been playing a bit of golf recently, and it was very, very illuminating.
I think it's great because what it does is it makes people question the world around them. So there's so much stuff that we take for granted. The internal combustion engine, perfect example that we looked at in the film there. How does it work? And I've never actually given it much thought. And then I went there and I downloaded this little animation, and suddenly it all made sense. And then, of course, they've stretched out from those things, mechanical things, into some very esoteric areas. How does the world work? Very brave.
So what are we going to give it then?
Well, what do you think the verdict is? It is an utterly undismantlable 5 out of 5.
Now, if your life, like mine, has been made a misery because of unanswered questions like, what is the most popular sexual position, and who has the largest penis, then you'll be pleased to know that all the answers and more can be found at sexualrecords.com. This site is a work of love and lovemaking in its many forms, and has everything you ever wanted to know about sex but were afraid to ask. The fauna section has facts and figures about animals and sex, and though it's not what you're thinking, there's not a sheep or a horse in sight. But some men will be pleased to hear that the shortest time for copulation is held by the mosquito, who manages to get it all over and done with in under 2 seconds. Phew! The site covers everything from sexual technique and deviant sexuality to conception and love. There are also some amazing stories that you'll be able to stun your friends with at dinner parties for years to come. Like the youngest recorded birth of a healthy boy to a mother aged only 5. And the earliest recorded form of contraception from Egypt made from crocodile dung. Ew. And apparently the owner of the world's biggest penis is the blue whale, who has a dork, as it's correctly called, that is 10 foot long and 1 foot in diameter. Brings tears to your eyes, doesn't it, girls? Now we know the real reason he was called Moby Dick. So the blue whale has the biggest willy, but imagine the size of the female's corresponding organ. I read that it is actually 23 feet. So did you find any interesting facts on here?
This site is amazing. It's just full of incredibly funny stuff. Stuff about the average size of the human penis, which of course is very interesting. First place all the blokes go, look, oh, how do I measure up on this one then?
It tells you how to measure yourself as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, top or bottom. It's to measure across the top, lads, in case you wanted to know. And also there's that dictionary of all the possible sexual terms you might ever want to know. Nebulophilia, which is arousal by fog. There you go, which is quite...
Happens to me all the time.
It's very interesting, although I do think there was something fundamentally wrong in there. I think it's been done by an American bloke, because under B it says a testicle is known as a ballock. No, it's not actually. Slight spelling mistake on that one. So, did this get the blood pumping in your veins?
Well, I thought every page was riveting reading, so it gets an orgasmic 5 out of 5.
Merci Catherine. Bonjour mes petits, j'espère que vous aimez parler français parce que nous avons quelque chose pour vous aider durant vos vacances. And if none of that made a single bit of sense to you, then hopefully the next site is going to help you out. Travlang.com is a travel site which wants to put words in your mouth. Well, foreign words to be precise. Self-billed as the travel and language super site, Travlang is divided into two main sections: travel-related services and language-related services. It's language that's the heart and soul of Travlang, and in this section you'll find a list of potential dialects that'll blow your socks off. From Afrikaans to Zulu, there's almost every language here that you care to think of, and by clicking on a country's flag you can choose what sort of help you're after. Maybe it's a list of basic words, or perhaps you want a few essential phrases to use in a restaurant. And here's where it gets interesting. Not only can you see how the words are spelt, but you can also get an audio clip to hear what they sound like.
Conforme al régimen alimenticio judío.
There's also a hotel finding service, which amusingly told me that apparently they speak British at London's Kensington Hilton. Tally ho! The site's got an amateur homepage built to it, but that's something you soon forgive. It's useful, fun, and informative. Bibil Hingquian, as they say in the Philippines. Now, Catherine, you speak French and you're going to start learning Italian soon, aren't you? So what did you think of this site?
I thought it was really useful. I mean, there's a good mixture of, if you're going to go on holiday, there's lots of stuff like exchange rates and finding out about national holidays so you don't arrive and you can't go shopping and get any food for yourself and stuff like that. And then the other side, obviously, is the language. And I was thinking of living in Bulgaria at one point, believe it or not. And so I thought I'd have a little test, and it's quite good translating word for word, and you can even get the sound sample so you can hear exactly how it's supposed to be pronounced.
Mind you, if you want entire phrases translated, I'm a big fan of the Babelfish site, Babelfish being the little thing that went in your ear in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Not so many languages, but it can translate entire phrases.
Yeah, that is useful actually. So what's the verdict for this site?
Oh, well, I think it's well put together, its grammar's quite well rounded, so I'm going to give it a very well spoken 4 out of 5.
And now it's time for our favourite sites of the week. And my favourite was sent in by one of our viewers, Cheeky Cherie. She suggested a sex site with a mission and a sense of humour. Good Vibrations promotes sexual health and pleasure through the sale of sexual aids, erotica and books from their very own publishing house, Down There Press. You must visit their antique vibrator museum with some excellent photos that look positively painful. But just remember that it's an American site and Fanny Swatter means something slightly different over there. Still, don't knock it till you've tried it.
Ooh, missus. Now, far be it from me to encourage the perception that I'm a beer-swilling buffoon, but I can certainly relate to the viewer who sent in pubworld.co.uk. If you love your boozers, you'll love this site. There's a search engine to find the pub of your choice, especially useful if you live in a big city and you want to discover some new watering holes. There's answers to all your questions about pub games, a pub chat room, and a lovely little feature where you can buy a friend a virtual pint. All for free and no hangover to boot. Mine's a pint of the black stuff.
Well, that's it for this week, but if you want some more information about the websites featured on today's show, you can look at our website at www.thewebreview.com.
And if you want to tell us about any interesting or fun sites that you found, or you simply want to say hello, then send a message to mail@thewebreview.com. Join us next week for another trip around cyberspace. Until then, goodbye.
Goodbye.